Go back to the country where they're bombing.
He turned around, put his hands inside his pockets and threatened us with a knife.
Muslims are raiding this country.
You just blend. You don't attract attention.
Why are you calling me a terrorist?
Because I want to.
I constantly get asked, do you consider yourself as British? And I don't see why I have to answer that question.
Muslim women have become the #1 target for religious hate crimes in today's Britain. And as a Muslim woman myself, I want to know how others are dealing with this spike in attacks. Are their identities being questioned? Do they need to integrate more, or do they need to be accepted? I speak to women from different age groups and backgrounds about what it's like to be British while Muslim female.
Shaimaa was walking home with her friends 2 weeks ago when a man started hurling anti-Muslim abuse at them. And it didn't stop there.
And at one point he turned around, put his hands inside his pockets and threatened us with a knife. And at that point we didn't know if he had a knife or not, but that was an incredibly scary point.
This is not the first time she's been attacked, but lately things have become a lot worse.
Do you feel in general that the UK is now a more hostile environment towards British Muslim women?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my identity is made up of what other people's perceptions are of me, which is really difficult, which is a hostile environment to begin with. Now I feel like because people are so much bolder in their racism, so much bolder in their Islamophobia, that it's made me really, really question, whether, this is my home. And I was born here, I was brought up here, this is all I've ever known. But yeah, I'm still being made to question that.
A recent report has warned that segregation and social exclusion have reached an alarming rate here in Britain, highlighting the state of women in some Muslim communities. But charities which monitor religious hate crimes say that it's the fear of being attacked that has made many Muslim women reluctant to venture out onto the streets, leading to further isolation. For some women, the way to avoid potential attacks is to appear less Muslim.
6 years, yeah. Yeah. No, that's a different scarf.
Maryam has worn the headscarf for 16 years, but recently she decided to take it off.
High five.
She was in a car with her son when a man came so close, he almost crashed into them. He was close enough for Maryam to hear his anti-religious slurs.
This car comes up at 50-mile speed. I looked at him and then I could see that he was swearing. I was scared, naturally. My son was there. He was sleeping, he didn't feel anything, which was great. But it made me rethink that maybe I don't feel safe here wearing it. It's a lifestyle, it's not really, how do I say it?
Letting go of her headscarf was not easy. But Maryam says she feels this is safer for her and her family.
It was a good decision, I think, because I saw the difference. And I saw the impact on my kids and their social life. And personally speaking on me, when I just leave the house, it's just, I'm just leaving the house. I'm not stressed and leaving the house. There was a burden, and I think it's been lifted.
Are you telling me that you can't walk out of your home with a headscarf and be safe?
That's the thing, Ma. I had two choices. I could have just kept wearing it and dealt with the consequences on a daily basis, or just try to have a bigger understanding of the situation and trying to help things flow in my day-to-day with my children. I still have my days. I still struggle sometimes internally. I don't really show it to my kids. But yeah, it's difficult because I've been wearing it for the past 16 years, and it's part of who I am.
Mariam is not alone. Many Muslim women are now changing their lifestyles in one way or another to avoid assaults.
It impacts the mobility of Muslim women. It impacts the day-to-day activity of Muslim women. So again, in our 2015 data analysis, what we've seen that there's 3 hotspots actually where attacks take place on Muslim women, as well as on the Muslim communities in general. It's on public transport, on bus stops, or while they're doing their day-to-day activities like shopping. When they are being attacked, the one thing they always think of is, okay, I'm going to stop going out from the house. I'm not going to go and stop and use the public transport. I'm going to stay at home and maybe go home after I finish my work and let my husband do the shopping and day-to-day activities. So it is curtailing and hindering actually their mobility. We had 207 reported, 228 here are mapped actually.
And it's not just the face-to-face aggression. Tell Mama is an organization dedicated to monitoring attacks against Muslims. They say there's been a big spike in online abuse.
Let's say an international incident takes place. The immediate reaction that happens is the online rhetoric and the online abuse that immediately spikes. And then for you to see it taken to a physical presence in the real world, it takes between 24 to 48 hours. The only incident that took place where the immediate action was both in the physical as well as the online world was Brexit. Brexit, you've seen attacks taking place on the street level as well as on the online world at the same time, like instantly, actually, immediately when the results were out. While if you take one of the major incidents, which is Paris, you'll see that taking place in the online world, and then within 24 hours, attacks actually shift from the online world to the physical presence in the real world on a street level.
Has that ever happened to you? Online abuse can get really aggressive when you're in the public eye. Someone who knows this all too well is Nadia Hussein, the first Muslim woman to win the Great British Bake Off.
There was lots of negativity, and kind of really it was quite difficult to read some of the stuff, and we had to have sort of police presence around the house and then people in the house and things, and the kids had a great laugh. They were like, this is great, we've got extra people staying with us, and they were none the wiser, and that was really important for them to know that they were safe, and the people who were out there saying things were empty threats.
But how did that affect you though?
Yeah, there was moments when I thought, what have I done? What have I done? Are my kids safe? And as much as I put a smile on my face, I did think, gosh, what have I done? For me as a person, originally I remember kind of feeling like, will I be accepted? Is it going to be a big deal that I wear a headscarf? And then actually coming out thinking, yeah, there's negativity, but God, I'm comfortable in myself. I'm really comfortable being me, and I wouldn't change that for the world. And I'm so proud of being British, and I live in a lovely country, and despite the negativity that I've received, those negative people and those negative comments are the minority, and I don't let that dictate how I live my life.
Oh, okay.
Over a Halal Sunday roast, I sit with Hifsa and her friends. They tell me dealing with Islamophobia is part of their lives. And it's not just the abuse they worry about, but also the fact that their identities are now being questioned.
But what irks me is I constantly get asked, do you consider yourself as British? And I don't see why I have to answer that question.
If you look at the 3-4% of Muslims in this country, we are from such a diverse background. Yeah. We are all very, very different. But what we do have in common is that we're English, we're British. People need to know that Muslims are ordinary people doing the same jobs as everybody else, having the same struggles as everybody else. And until we get that image out there, in some way, I think these problems are going to remain.
Oh my gosh! I think you can be hopeful and optimistic, but I'm a firm believer that to be part of change, for change to happen, you need to be part of it. So rather than this bystander effect or be passive Muslims, be part of it. We are British. We are very much part of this society, so we shouldn't feel embarrassed or hesitant about pushing ourselves out there and being part of the change, because that's what's important.
This is forcing Muslims to mobilise and actually think about, wait a minute, we can't just be passive victims, but also passive members of our community as well. We need to get out there. And I mean, if you look at surveys, Muslims are actually, a lot of them are, we're one of the most active members of our community within the country, I think. So I mean, that in and of itself is really, really positive.
So what do the authorities need to do?
I don't know. For one thing, I suppose I would say they just need to take these issues more seriously, Islamophobia more seriously. Yes, social media is perhaps kind of making these things more visible. There's no denying that. But at the same time, I don't think we should get so complacent where we're like, oh yeah, it's not that bad of a problem. It is a problem.
Many victims are reluctant to go to the police, however, either because they don't want to attract attention to themselves or because they feel the police won't actually do anything about it.
Most of the Muslim women that I've spoken to tell me that in one way or another they expect to be attacked because of their religion. What do you say to that?
See, I don't think they should expect it. They don't need to expect it, and I don't want them to expect it. But I do absolutely understand why they feel like that. As I said, over the last 12 months, Islamophobic crime has risen by 58%, and especially for a female who's expressing their religion through her dress. So she's visibly Islamic in the street, in the bazaar, on the train, on the tube, on the way to school, and that makes her much more of a visible target. What we do is urge people to report it to us. That's really important for a number of reasons. Firstly, we want to catch and bring to justice those people who are offending, but secondly, by giving us a full reporting pattern, it helps us to identify the prevalent places, the times, the locations, so we can have officers placed in those areas to deter it, but also to make people feel safe.
Go back to India! Oh my God, you've got to admire. It was Prince Harry. I thought, my God. People born here are now having to prove that we're British, right? And I don't understand that. I mean, what is that? Loving the NHS, sticky toffee pudding and ignoring people you know on a bus?
Dealing with religious relations can be challenging for many. Some choose to joke about it. Shazia even jokes about her friend having been hassled on the streets and told to go home after Brexit.
This is a very small country and we are full.
Well, I never think about it, I just laugh because some of it's so outrageous.
I'm very British, I'm more British than the British, which is very confusing to people who think they're really British when they see brown people talking better English than they do. That is very confusing for them. When my parents came over in the 70s, they were desperate to be British. Like my dad, he's called Mohammed, but he abbreviates it to Bob.
If you were to speak to British Muslim women in the UK at the moment, some of whom feel a bit threatened or afraid about the kind of reactions that they're getting, how would you tell them to handle it? What would your message be?
Oh gosh, I'm not Nelson Mandela, you know. How would I tell them to handle it? I think you should not deny who you are. I don't think anything will ever change. If we all started to deny who we were, that is a fear. And we've all seen what happens when people are scared. What breeds, what comes out of fear is hatred. So I think what I'd say to people is just not to deny who you are.
And laugh about it?
Well, I can because I'm a comedian. But if you're in a serious job and you're working in a hospital, or if you're a lawyer, or maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe you can't laugh about it.
I thought, my God, you've got to admire racists these days. They're not even trying to be accurate. It's the scattergun approach. Just keep firing, something will hit. It's racism for paintballers.
The question of identity is a complex one in Britain, especially with Muslim women. But the aspiration for many of them is simple: feeling safe in a country they call home. Shaimaa Khalil, BBC News.